Here are the top stories for today, the 9th of March 2022. The government warns jeepney drivers to hit the brakes on collecting higher fares from commuters as it has yet to act on their fare hike petition as soaring oil prices shows no signs of abating. Malacanang is looking into calls for the declaration of a state of economic emergency as the effects of skyrocketing fuel prices and the ongoing Russia-Ukraine conflict is now being felt in the country. Law enforcement agencies are given 30 days to probe the case of the 31 missing cockfighting aficionados, but the palace is not halting e-sabong operations pending investigation. And the Supreme Court halts the Comalex Oplan Baklas against illegally placed campaign materials. The poll body is also suspending its pact with an online news firm following opposition from the Office of the Solicitor General. Good day, I am William Theo. Welcome to the PNA Newsroom. The Land Transportation Franchising and Regulatory Board reminds public transport drivers to stick to the approved minimum fare pending the approval of their request. LTFRB Executive Director Cristina Casion says the scheduled meeting yesterday with the transport groups did not push through due to some lacking documents, but they are hoping they could come up with their decision on fare increase before March 22nd. Meanwhile, Casion says the government's fuel subsidy and service contracting program are in place to assist the transport sector.
Yung decision po on the 1 peso po ay for resolution na ng board. So anytime po after ng mga series of meetings po natin and technical consultations ay makapagpalabas na po yung board ng kanilang final decision whether or not to grant the provisional increase po. Pinapaalalahanan po natin ang ating mga drivers and operators po na wala pang final na desisyon ng LTFRB kung kaya't ang kasalukuyan po na fare natin ay 9 pesos pa rin po. Maituturing na overcharging po ang sobrang paniningil po at ang overcharging po ay may penalty na first offense po ay 5,000, second offense ay 10,000 at impounding ng sasakyan. And third and subsequent offense po ay 15,000 po yung fine niya at posibleng isuspende or kansilahin po yung prangkisa.
Malacanang is still reviewing calls for President Rodrigo Duterte to declare a state of economic emergency. This amid an increase in prices of petroleum products brought about by the Russia-Ukraine conflict. Albay Representative Joey Salceda earlier urged President Duterte to declare a state of economic emergency as this would enable local government units to tap their calamity funds to address fuel price surges. Salceda says the president has a moral obligation to address the looming fuel crisis. Based on his projections, the price of gasoline may rise up to 11.1 pesos per liter, diesel by 9.25 pesos per liter, and kerosene by up to 8.88 pesos per liter. But for Energy Secretary Alfonso Cusi, he said fuel prices will go down if the war between Russia and Ukraine ends.
If war will spread, no? And sanction will be imposed, it will be also what you call it, wider in scope, and everybody will be getting, and there will be no increase in supply and everybody is getting from the same source. Talaga tataas yan, no? Ano pa ba? Siyempre, ito naman mga oil-producing country, ang kwan natin dyan, ano? We're not a producing country and tayo naman talagang dependent sa mga ng mga experts, no, sa mga more developed countries. Yes, syempre sila ang oil producing country, they are also studying, no, the impact of their pricing regulation, their curtailing the supply and everything. They're putting they're working on that to their advantage, no? But the market also, yung resiliency, hanggang saan tayo, pinapag-aralan din natin yan.
Cusi said the government is doing everything to cushion the impact of the oil price hike and declaring a state of economic emergency is unnecessary.
I don't think it is necessary at this point. No, even when you declare an economic emergency, what do you do during the economic emergency? Di ba? Ganun pa rin what we're doing. Hindi pa rin. So I wouldn't say that it's necessary at this point in time.
In yesterday's online press briefing, acting presidential spokesperson and communications secretary Martin Andanar said President Duterte backed the recommendations of Socio-Economic Planning Secretary Carl Kendrick Chua to cushion the impact of the Russia-Ukraine war. To cushion the economic blow of the Russia-Ukraine conflict, President Rodrigo Duterte approved the recommendations of the Department of Agriculture on additional subsidies for food security and fuel. Agriculture Secretary William Dar said the President also increased the budget for fertilizer.
Pamimigay tayo ng fertilizer subsidy.
Wow.
So yun, fertilizer subsidy, sabi ko, mahal na Pangulo, ito yung kailangan po natin. Sabi niya, Secretary Dar,
Kulang.
maliit yan, kulang yan.
So magkano po?
So sabi niya, dadagdagan natin yan. Magpapahanap ako ng pundo para madagdagan. So nung next day, nag-meeting tayo dito sa Kagawaran ng Pagsasaka at from a 12 billion budget presentation nung gabi ng Tuesday ay formally pinopose na natin ng 24 billion. So, ang fertilizer subsidy ay abot na ng 20 billion additional.
Wow, malaki na yan. Malaking tulong
Sabi
na
nga
po.
ng Presidente, ang daing palagi ng ating mga magsasaka pag siya umiikot sa kanayunan sa mga iba't ibang probinsya, fertilizer, Mr. President.
Yun.
Other measures approved by the President are the realignment of the 2022 budget of the Department of Agriculture, additional 24 billion pesos for the Plant Program Part 2, additional government financing to provide LGUs to support rice buffer stocking at their level, and the transfer of the National Irrigation Administration to the Department of Agriculture for better water management and amending the 3-month average of $80 per barrel trigger requirement for the release and distribution of the fuel subsidy. The 21 Filipino seafarers who were extracted from war-torn Ukraine have arrived in the Philippines. Foreign Affairs Undersecretary Sarah Lu Ariola in a Twitter post says the 21 stranded seafarers of the vessel MVS Breeze have crossed from Ukraine to Moldova through the assistance of Honorary Consul Victor Gaina. The bulk carrier MVS Breeze had been on dry dock for repairs at the Iloilo shipyard in the port of Odessa, Ukraine, when Russia invaded the European nation in February. Their arrival brings to at least 63 the number of Filipinos the DFA has repatriated since tensions escalated in Ukraine. Ukraine is under alert level 4. This means evacuation is mandatory due to the deteriorating security situation. Filipinos who are still in Ukraine may contact the Philippine Embassy in Warsaw for repatriation via email address, emergency hotline, and office mobile number. Those who are near the southern border of Ukraine, on the other hand, may reach the Philippine Embassy in Budapest via email or phone number. Malacanang has given the Philippine National Police and the National Bureau of Investigation 30 days to investigate the disappearance of cockfighting enthusiasts or sabungeros. In a March 8 memorandum signed by Executive Secretary Salvador Medialdea, he also directed PAGCOR to conduct an investigation for any violations of its e-sabung licenses under their existing terms of agreement and to ensure compliance with the security and surveillance requirements under its regulatory framework, particularly the installation of CCTV systems in e-sabong gaming sites, among others. The Palace Memorandum was in response to Senate Resolution 996, which urged to suspend the operations and licenses of e-sabong until cases of the 31 sabungeros have been resolved. The memorandum is addressed to Interior Secretary Eduardo Año, Justice Secretary Menardo Guevara, and PAGCOR Chairperson and Chief Executive Officer Andrea Domingo. The Philippines has already received all the 10 million doses of Sputnik COVID-19 doses ordered from the Russian government. National Task Force Against COVID-19 Chief Secretary Carlito Galvez Jr. said there will be no vaccine deliveries for now from Russia, which is locked in an armed battle against Ukraine. He said there's nothing to worry about because the country has enough COVID-19 jabs to use as primary series and booster shots for the adult population. Galvez said the government targets to complete this year the vaccination of 12.74 million in the 12 to 17 age group and 15.56 million age 5 to 11 this year.
Tapos na yung ating contract with the Russian government and also to the Russian Direct Investment Fund. We contracted for 10 million. Tapos na lahat ng kontrata natin and considering we have more than enough vaccine. Sa ngayon, ang talagang kinukuha lang natin vaccine is for our tinatawag na pediatric vaccine, yung 5 to 11 at saka purposely maybe kung magkaroon tayo ng approval sa 0 to 4, yun lang ang kukunin natin.
The government is mulling mandatory booster shots for senior citizens and those with comorbidities to prevent severe coronavirus infections that may result in death. Vaccine Czar Secretary Carlito Galvez Jr. says massive administration of booster shots greatly contributed to the decline of mortality rate in some countries. He said the government may also amend the definition of fully vaccinated from having 2 primary doses to including the booster shots.
Maganda rin na magkaroon talaga ng mandatory booster, lalo na yung mga seniors at saka yung may comorbidities. Because nakikita natin na yung during the height of maraming deaths, 59 years old and above and those with comorbidities, they are very vulnerable. So, mas maganda magkaroon siya ng boosters, even 4th boosters.
Still to come, the High Court orders a halt to the Comalex operations against illegally placed campaign materials. And Iloilo City wants to be placed under the most relaxed alert level 1. Details ahead, keep it here on the PNA Newsroom. The Commission on Elections has suspended its Memorandum of Agreement on Election Fact-Checking with online news website Rappler. In a one-page memorandum, all activities in connection with the fact-checking MOA are ordered on hold. The poll body cited the allegations against Rappler, saying the MOA will not be implemented until the issues are settled or a decision of the court is rendered. Earlier, the Office of the Solicitor General filed a petition before the Supreme Court seeking to nullify the deal between the Comelec and Rappler. It cited the undue delegation to Rappler of the Comalex authority, its alleged violation of the Constitution and the laws, its alleged record of reporting false and grossly biased information, and its supposed violation of the state policy to be fully independent from foreign interference. The National Press Club, one of the country's oldest and biggest media organizations, has also opposed the partnership between the Comelec and Rappler. Meanwhile, the SC Bank on Tuesday issued a temporary restraining order against the Comelec's Operation Baklas, which cracked down on supposed illegal election materials even on private premises. The SC ordered acting Comelec Chair Socorro Inting and spokesperson James Jimenez to comment on the petition within 10 days from receipt of the notice. Among those who filed the suit are supporters of Vice President Leni Robredo, who claimed that their election materials on their properties were forcefully removed by Comelec. The Commission on Elections is set to notify candidates of the general topics to be tackled in the first debates for presidential and vice presidential candidates. Comelec spokesperson James Jimenez said specific questions for the debates it is hosting will come from various sectors. He said the topics were agreed upon by the Comelec and there will be input on specific questions from the sectors that they are soliciting from. The debate for presidential bets is set on March 19, while vice presidential bets will have their debate on March 20, both to be held at the Sofitel Hotel in Pasay City. The second presidential debates will be on April 3, also at the same venue. Jimenez, meanwhile, said there are no other penalties for national candidates who will not participate in the debate sponsored by the Comelec. He said the country's election laws mandate that candidates can use mass media for their campaign. Local government units continue to gear up for the fourth nationwide vaccination drive this week, with more seniors and children being eyed for protection against COVID-19. Chris Mundo reports.
Cebu City will target the young population in the Bayanihan Bakunahan National Vaccination Days against COVID-19 on March 10 to 12. This as the city surpassed its minimum inoculation coverage for senior citizens at 73%. Cebu City Health Department Head Dr. Jeffrey Ibones said it is ready for the 3-day nationwide vaccination drive to be done in more than 30 regular and pop sites all around the city. Ibones commended parents for their eagerness to have their children aged 5 to 11 vaccinated against COVID-19. Meanwhile, the provincial government of Negros Oriental is aiming to reach a high turnout of vaccinated individuals during the 4th National Vaccination Drive from March 10 to 12. Assistant Provincial Health Officer Dr. Leland Estacion said she hopes to reach 60% of the total targeted population for vaccination after the 3-day inoculation campaign. Negros Oriental's total number of fully vaccinated individuals are 531,533, including those who received one-shot Janssen vaccine. The province's target population is 990,637. In Antique, the Integrated Provincial Health Office is targeting to vaccinate over 34,000 senior citizens during the national COVID-19 vaccination drive. The vaccination for the A2 or senior citizens in Antique has a low turnout due to vaccine hesitancy and health reasons. Of the 95,000 target eligible population, 34,719 are unvaccinated, based on the report of the Office of the Senior Citizens Affairs as of March 6. For the PNA Newsroom, I'm Chris Mundo.
The local government of Iloilo City is appealing for a de-escalated alert level system from its current alert level 2 classification to level 1 to allow more economic activities to open. In his letter of urgent appeal dated March 8, Mayor Jerry Treñas argued that the current alert level 2 classification still prevents certain industries from operating as well as opening more activities. Treñas said Iloilo City's case fatality rate is now at 2.21%, second to Oplan's 1.6%, which is the lowest in Western Visayas as of March 6. The city also recorded a drastic decrease in the number of cases from the previous 1,113 cases in the recent 2 weeks, down to 276 as of March 7. Meanwhile, the healthcare utilization rate of the city as of March 6 dropped at 45%, while it is also poised to open another 76-bed capacity modular hospital. An official of the National Economic and Development Authority, or NEDA, stressed the importance of government subsidies in helping the public cope with the impact of rising fuel prices. The government allocated under this year's national budget 2.5 billion pesos worth of fuel subsidies for public utility vehicle drivers and operators, as well as a 500 million peso subsidy for the agriculture sector. NEDA Undersecretary Rosemary Adilion said NEDA is requesting for an increase in subsidies for the transport and agriculture sectors. She, however, said they need to check if there will be an increase in revenue collections, which will be tapped for the additional subsidies. Inflation rate in the second month this year remained at 3%, but monetary authorities expect acceleration in the coming months as price of oil in the international market continues to jump. Edilion said because of the February 2022 inflation outcome, authorities want to ensure adequate food supply, which account for the largest share in the consumer price index basket. Up next, another big haul in Valenzuela. Authorities seize over 1 billion pesos worth of shabu. And reviving tourism, the famous Palawi Island reopens to travelers after 2 years. We're back after a quick break. Stay with the PNA Newsroom.
Palaban, walang kinatatakutan at may paninindigan. Ilan lamang yan sa mga ipinagmamalaki ng mga Pilipina. Ngunit hindi na bago ang katangiang yan sa ating kababaihan. Noon pa man, meron ng magigiting na babaeng handang tumindig para sa karapatan at kalayaan ng lahat.
Si Gabriela Silang na unang babaeng namuno ng revolusyon. Si Teresa Magbanua na lumaban noong panahon ng Espanyol at pinangunahan ang mga sharpshooter. At si Carmen Rosales na tinuloy ang laban ng kanyang asawa laban sa mga Hapon at sumali sa hukbalahap.
Bagamat ehemplo ang mga ito ng progresibong pag-iisip ukol sa kababaihan, lagana pa rin ang stereotypes, diskriminasyon at pang-aabuso.
Kaya naman ngayong National Women's Month, sama-sama nating ilunsad ang agenda ng kababaihan tungo sa kaunlaran. Patuloy nating isulong ang gender equality at women empowerment dahil hindi pa tapos ang tungkulin ng babae sa paggawa ng kasaysayan.
A lawmaker lauded the Land Transportation Franchising and Regulatory Board as it committed to restore all public bus routes to full capacity without COVID-19 restrictions. House Ways and Means Committee Chair Joey Salceda said there are no longer any restrictions on public utility bus routes to help mitigate the effects of oil prices on Filipino workers and consumers. He said he has also urged the LTFRB to allow public utility jeepneys to ply their full routes. Salceda, meanwhile, proposed a subsidy program funded by excess value-added tax revenues dubbed as Katas ng Train Program. The 68.8 billion peso program will be composed of monthly lifeline rate and middle-class power subsidies, fertilizer subsidies for farmers, relief programs for Typhoon Odette victims, social pension increases, fuel subsidies for small fisher folk, and authorizing the Pantawid Pasada program for drivers, including subsidies for tricycle operators and drivers. Malacanang paid tribute to the important role of women at homes and in society as the nation observed International Women's Day on Tuesday. Presidential Communications Secretary and Acting Presidential Spokesperson Martin Andanar cited some of the most important laws signed during the Duterte administration to improve women's rights and welfare. One of these laws is Republic Act No. 11148 or the Kalusugan at Nutrition ng Magnanay Act, which scaled up health programs for maternal, neonatal, child health, and nutrition in the first 1,000 days of life. Another is Republic Act No. 11210 or the Expanded Maternity Leave Act, which increased the maternity leave period to 105 days for female workers. Also signed by Duterte is Republic Act No. 11648, which increased the age for determining statutory rape to 16 years old. The United Nations Children's Fund, or UNICEF, has congratulated the Philippine government for this milestone. Meanwhile, the Ilocos Police Regional Office commended 11 of its personnel in line with the kickoff ceremony of the National Women's Month celebration. DILG Ilocos Regional Director Dr. Julie Dakiwag highlighted the crucial role of women in the foundation of a home and in the development in society. She said the gender stereotype of women is slowly fading away given the laws that were set in place to ensure equal rights and opportunities between men and women. This year's Women's Month celebration carries the theme, "We make change work for women." Authorities seized about 1.1 billion pesos worth of shabu from a Chinese national and his Filipino cohort in a buy-bust operation in Valenzuela City on Tuesday. The Philippine Drug Enforcement Agency identified the suspects as Tianzu Liu of Fujian, China, and Melissa Villanueva of Concepcion, Tarlac. They yielded 160 kilograms of shabu when they were arrested along JP Rizal Street, RT subdivision in Barangay Karuhatan. The PDEA said both Liu and Villanueva are high-value targets. They will both face charges for violation of the Comprehensive Dangerous Drugs Act of 2002. The world-famous Palawi Island in Cagayan opened its doors again to tourists starting Tuesday after a 2-year hiatus due to the pandemic. Member agencies of the Protected Area Management Board led the ribbon-cutting ceremony to signal the reopening of the Palawi Island Protected Landscape and Seascape, or PIPLS. Palawi Island became famous for hosting 2 seasons of the reality show Survivor USA and for being included in the top 10 most beautiful beaches of the world by international broadcast network CNN. Back in 2020, the Department of Environment and Natural Resources provided 1 million pesos to fund the emergency employment of about 160 families in the island. And in Zamboanga City, the local interagency task force for the management of emerging infectious diseases is planning to open the Climaco Freedom Park to the Catholic faithful for the observance of the Holy Week in April. The Freedom Park is in Mount Abong-Abong, where thousands of Catholic devotees gather during Holy Week for the Way of the Cross. The Climaco Freedom Park was declared off-limits to visitors since the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic in March 2020. Let's take another look at today's biggest stories. The government warns jeepney drivers to hit the brakes on collecting higher fares from commuters as it has yet to act on their fare hike petition as soaring oil prices shows no signs of abating. Malacanang is looking into calls for the declaration of a state of economic emergency as the effects of skyrocketing fuel prices and the ongoing Russia-Ukraine conflict is now being felt in the country. Law enforcement agencies are given 30 days to probe the case of the 31 missing cockfighting aficionados, but the palace is not halting e-sabong operations pending investigation. And the Supreme Court halts the Comalex Oplan Baklas against illegally placed campaign materials. The poll body is also suspending its pact with an online news firm following opposition from the Office of the Solicitor General. As Filipinos, we all have a vital role to play in preventing the spread of COVID-19. So remember, wear your face masks and face shields, wash your hands often, practice safe physical distancing, go out only for essential reasons, and get vaccinated as soon as possible to protect ourselves, our families, and the community. Together, we can beat COVID-19. Thank you for watching another episode of the PNA Newsroom. For more news content, check our webpage or log onto the Philippine News Agency's Facebook and Twitter accounts. For more stories about the government and how it serves Filipinos, look for these hashtags in all of our social media platforms and websites. We are shown on the pages of the PCOO and its attached agencies. Also, watch us on television on PTV4 and IBC 13. And that's your daily dose of the biggest stories that you need to know. From the PNA Newsroom, we tell stories that inspire change. I am William Theo. Good day, everyone.